still do 7 NUFC Matters shows for free a week. But if you want to support the channel, there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast or video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications options. Hit the thanks button to buy a super sticker. You can do this on the live chat too. You can also join our Patreon page or buy us a coffee at the link in all of our video descriptions below. We are also looking for sponsors. If you want our latest advertising rates and how you can get involved, then email John at nufcmatters1892@gmail.com.
Just a question of taste with you, well, if you've gone sour, you want the world plus everything, but you won't work an hour. And now your questions are guilt creeping and you go and buy her flowers. You throw away the dreams we had, boy, I won't allow it. I said we're gonna fall out, let's see you get out. I think we're gonna fall out. Just shut your mouth.
Good afternoon, welcome to NUFC Matters. It is the professionals on Saturday because Newcastle playing tomorrow, and it's welcome to Stu and welcome to Mitch. How are you, chaps?
Very well. Finished craft and the Jaeger bombs ready to go.
Good stuff. Let's just go through the scores as we have them at the moment. Half time, of course, today. Man City Palace already played. Strange old game. Palace 2-0 up. Man City winning 5-2. Maybe Joey Barton's interview about Turkey teeth and Kevin De Bruyne hit a nerve, and we saw a 5-2 win for Man City. Half times then. Brighton 1, Leicester 1. A penalty for João Pedro and Steffi Mavidi, for Leicester, got the equaliser. Forest, Chris Wood back for them today. Currently held goals apiece, 0-0. 0-0 with them too at the Forest ground. Southampton 0, Villa 0 as well. That's the only other game that is kicked off. Arsenal-Brentford kick off at tea time, of course. Where do we start today? Lots of questions have come in this week for the lads. Lots of people want to know what their thoughts are on the whole Chelsea scenario. So without picking out one person's question in particular, just talk a little bit about it, Stu. The rumblings that we keep hearing from Stamford Bridge about hotels being sold, women's teams being sold. Are you UEFA happy? Are you UEFA not happy? What's the Premier League's view going to be about it? Where do we stand with Chelsea at the moment? Obviously, we're still waiting for this Man City case to finish. Latest media reports suggest we're not going to hear anything about that now until the summer. So that can be kicked further down the road. But what does all this Chelsea stuff mean for the people out there who support Newcastle United?
Not much really relating to Newcastle, because we played everything by the book. And as you both know, I've been busy with graphs, not productive, but busy. And Mitch has got his eyes more on this question than I have. But my basic understanding of it is, and I think everyone who's watching will probably agree, the rules are there, and you can't even say they've bent the rules. The word loophole gets pushed around quite often, but ultimately they're finding ways to create or generate extra funds to allow the first team to spend. And there's a big difference between legally right and morally right. And things like the hotels, it doesn't sit right with the majority of fans, including their own. And then selling the ladies' team for what is an extortionate price. Now, considering if we want to bring Newcastle into it, the scrutiny that went into Alan St. Maximin's sale to Saudi Arabia, it seems like that's been ignored with the sale of the women's team, the value of it. But it's there for them to be exposed. I think what they're doing is the chance in their arm and the fact that the Premier League have their eyes with Man City and all the funds are there, and people have to understand it's not the Premier League's money, it's other clubs' money. Do they have the appetite for another elongated court case and fight, etc.? Where the Crusader on the White Horse comes in is UEFA, who's saying, believe it or not, UEFA playing by the rules is something in itself. Is them saying, no, this isn't right, we won't pass it on this. But as we've seen in the past with Barcelona, etc., it's only a really small fine that gets passed over. And Chelsea, something that Mitch has mentioned many times, are happy to take a monetary fine rather than a sporting fine. And will they get found out? Well, it looks like the exposure has now been turned onto them, the spotlight's on them. But I'm quite certain that they would have done everything within the rules. Now, we say within the rules. What I mean by that is what they're doing probably isn't highlighted in the rules, hence the reason they've done it. So, in my opinion, Chelsea will eventually stumble because you can only kick the can down the road so long before it comes up to you. Same with the way they do transfer fees. You know, that there's going to be and this is what Barcelona found out. You can only keep passing debt on from one season to the next. Eventually, the creditors will say, hang on, I want my money, or there's nothing left to sell. The cupboards are bare. So regarding Chelsea, we can watch with a satisfactory, smug grin in our arms fold and saying, well, we're doing everything right, and let the Premier League, let UEFA sort them out. But if they do get away with it, then that opens several other doors. And I know it was reported Aston Villa were considering doing the same, but maybe it's not for the same monetary value. So it's best that Mitch will probably cover this in a bit more detail for the viewers.
Yeah, Mitch, it's run and run this story this week. Lots of column inches filled, lots of chat shows talking about it. What's your views on it?
Look, the blame for this for me lies squarely with the Premier League, and you can point fingers at Chelsea. I think you've got a clever set of accounting going on. The Premier League have been unable and inefficient in trying to close loopholes and shut things down, partly through not having the votes of other clubs. And so they start to ask questions about why certain clubs have voted a certain way. And then you say Bournemouth have only passed PSR because they've been allowed to write a shareholder loan off, and they're controversial in themselves. And one wonders, was that part of an agreement for them to vote a certain way to help the Premier League ease the rules back? It starts to make you ask further and deeper questions, if you ask me. Certainly, they're going to fail the UEFA test. That's pretty clear. But the UEFA have already made it clear it's just going to be a fine. There'll be no sporting sanction. And that's the only thing that can really hurt them. They don't fear a fine. The fine they will pay. That will be done. I think some of the questions of the Premier League as well is when they say with regarding the hotel sale, and then they retain the operating rights and the profits made off of the hotels, that they didn't have the wording to shut that down. And that's absolute nonsense, because if you look at the equivalent rules in the Football League, the wording's there. You just copy, paste. So who in the Premier League delayed, obfuscated, and then came out with that line? It makes you wonder. You start to ask further questions. There's still questions about the money resting in a bank account and who actually controls it, and will anybody who's a victim of the war in the Ukraine ever see any cash? Then the answer is probably not. It's all tied in with this, but it comes back to the inability and the inefficiency of the Premier League and their inability to apply their rules fairly and apply their rules clearly. That's why Leicester got off with the punishment, because Nick DeMarco pointed out how poorly the rules were written. And that still remains the case for a lot of these things. And it's why they're in trouble with Man City on a number of levels in a number of cases. You can't really point the finger at Chelsea to a point, because they're just being very clever, finding ways to run in those grey areas where the rules are. And they've been bold enough to do that. I mean, their parent company's losing a ridiculous amount of money, but that just doesn't come into the equation. To sell their women's team effectively to themselves for what is double, at a price which is double the turnover of the entire European women's game, is frankly outrageous, really. But there it is, it's done. And I know the Premier League haven't signed everything off yet for that. And I think there's some questions that they will have to answer. But can you see them really doing anything other? The suggestion is already that they're negotiating a fine. Now, how would Forest and Everton feel about that, where they weren't allowed to negotiate fines? And so, again, it comes back to lack of leadership at the Premier League level and their ability to apply their rules, and that the rules are bullshit.
Steve Hasty saying the EPL still allowing the shareholder loans to be allowed despite APT2. Bournemouth accounts show £72 million shareholder propped club up last season.
Yeah, and this is something we covered over the Christmas period when Man City warned them, the Premier League, not to rush through the new ruling, and they did. And we know that some clubs swap sides because it benefited them. It seems like you would expect to fall on the Man City side to say, well, hang on, if we look at this as a personal view, which each club will do, they're only after their own benefits, then Bournemouth were definitely one of those teams that were on the borderline of which side do they fall on. But in the APT2, what they're doing is illegal. So how's it not illegal in APT1? That then, for me, just causes another legal mess. When Mitch mentioned there about Leicester, I'll be very surprised if Nick DeMarco's not back into bat for them in the summer, because by all accounts, the Football League are rubbing their hands waiting for them to come back down to hit them with fines and points deductions for managing to escape their grasp last time. You know, it's a mess. There's no communication, there's no consistency, and it leads it all into the courtrooms, which is not what football's about. You know, it should be away from politics, it should be away from legalities, and it should just be on sport merit. And although there's been people questioning Chelsea's sport merit with hotels, women's teams, etc., they're not breaking the law. And that's why I said before, it's morally right and legally right. And until there's a rewrite of the rules, and it's something that we've all mentioned, Steve Hasty included, probably for the last 3 years, probably 3.5 years since the Newcastle rule got brought in. It's you can't just change rules on a whim and legally and then try to say it's legal when it's not. And this is why someone like Nick DeMarco, who's very, very good at his job, and the likes of him, his companions, etc., they're making fortunes out of our game. And for me, it's wrong. I mean, I'm more than grateful what Nick DeMarco did in his role he played for our takeover, but it shouldn't be like that. It should be on sport and merit, and the fact that is, if you've got money, you should be allowed to spend it. And it gets made a mockery of it when you get Forest, who got promoted on the strength of, I think it was about 12 of their squad minimum, might even be higher, were loanees. They didn't have a squad. They didn't have enough numbers to fill a squad for the Premier League, so they had to go out and buy. And I know people laughed at it, but they had a chairman who wanted to bankroll it and was willing to bankroll it. And he said his plan was to make Nottingham Forest sustainable and get them in Europe within the next few years. And he was scoffed at, because how dare he challenge the Mighty Six? How dare he challenge them? And he took a 4-point hit, and look where they're sitting now. Now, it would take a calamitous drop of form in points gathering for them not to make Europe in any form. But to do that after just escaping relegation last season shows that if you spend money in this league and you spend it correctly, there's room for improvement. Whereas what the others want to do is sit on their money heaps and be assured of the fact that they've got the biggest cash pile, and they can make errors and still come out on top of the heap. And it's now proven to be wrong. And I know I don't want to sound like a parrot repeat myself, but I know it's been consistent on this channel. The rules will about to be rewritten simply because the people who brought in to slow down Newcastle progress, the rules that they ushered through without any foresight has now come back to bite them in the arse. And you see, you hear reports that Man United don't have money to buy new players. Well, that's a shame. Arsenal can't afford Isak. That's a shame. But it's coming to them where the only ones who really are in a position to spend money is Liverpool, Man City. And then normal service is resumed if that's the case, because that's what the Premier League's been like for the last 3 or 4 years, with them two at the top, all barring Arsenal's interference to the top 2 or 3 for 2 of those years. What they don't want is to be challenged, but if they're shall we call it a conglomerate, if they're a conglomerate of 6 and 2 of them, 3 of them are slipping away through their own errors, through their own mismanagement and bad judgment, then all of a sudden it doesn't suit the narrative. And the public opinion starts leading towards Newcastle, Aston Villa, Forest, and teams like that who are willing to spend the money and aren't getting into debt by doing so. They're spending the owner's own money. They're not spending someone else's money to sustain the position at the top of the pile. And I think we still have to go back to the moral argument, but that's what sport's about. May the best team win and all of that. But no, it's not. It seems to be may the best lawyers win. And it's frustrating.
Steve Hasty commenting again, Mitch there. Stars and Stripes cartel, Arsenal, Aston Villa, Bournemouth, Chelsea, Fulham, Crystal Palace, Ipswich, Liverpool, Manchester United. Add West Ham, he says, who have a minority US owner. I mean, ultimately, Mitch...
And Everton now as well.
Yeah, should we be... Oh, good news. Sunderland 0, Swansea 1.
No.
Yeah, so should we be concerned about this American invasion? Is it potentially a step towards a Super League? Because we know how much the Americans would love to probably do that.
Yeah, it could be. You know, there's certainly different ways things could go. You don't know what their influence is going to be. American sport is exceptionally different to the way we run things. American sport, the concept of relegation and promotion is anathema to them. The concept of not everybody playing for the biggest prize is anathema to them. Would they want a Premier League run without promotion or relegation? Or would it be a case of looking to reorganise and taking clubs from the Championship and creating a Premier League 1 and a Premier League 2? There's lots of different ways this could go. And I don't see much of it being beneficial for our game. And certainly it would be very different to how our game normally is set up. And I think that would be exceptionally frustrating for us as fans. However, money talks, doesn't it? However, and again, the other division there seems to be at the moment is that, the money from the Middle East is viewed in a very different way to the money from the States and viewed as competition and not as all together. And that's exceptionally frustrating, but there seems to be an increasing American influence on the game, which, yes, I think we can all accept globalization in the game, but not undue influence in that kind of way.
Yeah, Mitch, you mentioned globalization, but what I think Steve Hasty's referencing to, and it's something the three of us have been consistent on, is the Americanization. And you touched on it there about relegation being an alien concept to them. Are they trying to eventually push to franchises, and you see it, how they'll swap from city to city. They don't get it. That's the top and bottom of it. And without bringing politics into it too much, if you see how the president of that country is now going on regarding tariffs, etc., they do have this belief that they are the epicenter of the planet and everything they say is right and everyone else is wrong and everyone should dance to their tune. And that's basically how it is. And if anyone who's watching from America thinks I'm wrong, please put a comment in and tell me why I'm wrong, because it's been played out on a global stage now. So by sneaking in, and something that's on the Migos that's been said more often than on the professionals, is how these American owners are getting sneaked in with Delaware companies and stuff like that, and they're not really getting researched. But it took us 18 months to get our takeover from a public investment fund that was very, very transparent. So it shows, and again, I'll use adage that Mitch uses often, is American money good, Arab money bad. And whether that's some sort of xenophobia, whether it's some sort of silent takeover from the States because it's the strength, because of the strength of the Premier League, you don't see this much American influence ownership-wise in the French league, the Spanish league, or the Italian league. They'll go where the money is, and once they get the majority, they'll decide to change the rules to suit themselves. And all of a sudden, as I touched on just before there, people are now starting to wake up and smell the coffee to something that we've been spouting out for the last probably 4.5 years during the takeover process, and why it was getting stopped. It wasn't stopped for financial reasons. It was stopped out of fear and the fact that they had more money disposable to invest than what the American money companies did, because the majority of them are using other people's money.
Steve Hasty coming up with some absolute gold dust again. He says the AFL clubs with the US owners include Burnley, Wrexham, Swansea, Plymouth, Birmingham, Leeds, Millwall, Portsmouth, Sheffield United, West Brom, Cambridge, Charlton, Crawley, Huddersfield, Lincoln City. It's unbelievable, really. It really is, to think that we've literally had an American takeover in front of us and not really realised, Stu.
It's not realised. People don't seem threatened by it, but I'll ask the question back. If those countries, if those clubs were owned by Middle East countries or Middle East companies, do you think all those would have been passed through? Do you think that would just be generally accepted?
No.
There's your answer.
Yeah, 100%, mate. Yeah, it is doomed. Les certainly feels like it. I just said, Mitch, when you went out the room there, Steve Hasty, again, coming up with some great knowledge there. And just look at that list of teams,
Yes.
Mitch, who are it's almost in plain sight they've come in, haven't they?
He's once again just one step ahead of us. That was going to be my next point, is that you look at the American ownership further down the league. They obviously feel that there's an investment worth to get a return, and it's interesting who's getting involved with those. There's a lot of people involved in sport at all levels, former players. JJ Watt at Burnley, Tom Brady at Birmingham. You know, wealthy former American sports stars who are taking a punt on what's the end game, where is this going, and it can't help but feel like perhaps there's this desire for a Premier League 1, Premier League 2, and then sod everybody else, and that's what everybody's taking a punt with the lower league teams, is that they'll get up to a point where when that happens, they'll be some of the chosen few who go forward to Premier League 2, and that's where the money is, that's where the promised land is, that's where the bigger returns are. How that then fits in with Real Madrid and Barcelona's A22 concept of the Super League, you've got to start to wonder, because that still hasn't gone away. And at least now that looks semi-professional, and it doesn't look like it was done by a 14-year-old as a GCSE project, and all social media and the website. Barcelona and Real Madrid remain at loggerheads with La Liga and remain at loggerheads with UEFA. And so where does that go in the end? We really don't know. And we don't know what the end game is.
Yeah, we certainly don't. Only changes in the score so far in the second half. Brighton gone ahead after a lengthy VAR decision. There's a surprise. They lead by 2-1 against Leicester. Southampton and Villa still 0-0, as are Nottingham Forest and Everton still 0-0. Okay, comments and questions. Barry says, do you guys never get sick of the Saudis behaving by the book? I think it's great to have owners with integrity, but the Premier League and top six are taking the... What's your views on that, Stu? Do you get sick of them being do-gooders and playing by the book?
I'm trying to work out what the 4 stars mean. No, I'm only joking. No, but you're just waiting for for those older people who had mothers who were addicted to American soap operas. You're just waiting for J.R. Ewing and Blake Carrington to start buying clubs and no one even look at it and just wave it straight through. And that's fine, no problem. You're from America, great, that's fantastic. It doesn't matter if it's borrowed money or whatever. But and I work very much, the majority of the business I do is with wealthy Saudi clients, and the word that Barry used there is integrity, and the majority of them do have that, and they will play it by the book. And for me, I know there's religious beliefs different, and there's different things like ethnically, etc. But what is very similar is with the Geordie nation is I'll do what I say and I'll say what I do, and don't pee on my back and tell us it's raining. So I'll give you enough rope to hang yourself, but I'll support you all the way. But if you try and pull a sly one on me, you're in trouble. And that's how they do business. And I'm pleased that they're doing it with integrity. I know we touched on it just last week regarding winning our first trophy in 70 years. Imagine in fact, I was having this discussion with someone today. Believe it or not, it was a Man United fan. It was a client this morning. And he says, "You must be happy." I says, "Yes." I says, "But I'm also happy that the rules were in place, because I think everyone was fearing or expecting a Man City or Chelsea style splash of cash, but on a much bigger scale because of the wealth of the public investment fund." And for me, it would have tainted our first trophy. I mean, of course, we still would have celebrated. But the fact I mentioned to him, I says, come the summer, it'll be our 4th window, where the previous 3, we haven't bought anyone to improve the first team or make the squad better. And so for me, it's organic, it's natural, but it means more. Yes, there was money spent, but it was spent wisely. If you look at the time since the takeover, so I think it's 7 windows, if my maths are correct, maybe 6 windows. We're not the biggest spenders by a long chalk, but what we have done is got the majority, if not all, of the decisions correct on who we're buying, and they've all been improved on. And we can go through the list. Tonali's the flavour of the month at the moment, and he was seen as potential in the golden boy in Italy, but he wasn't to the price tag wise it is now. And then you look at our 2 fullbacks, and this we'll keep going back to praise anyhow because he deserves it from here to eternity. But the point I was making out with the Saudi client was the Man United fan, who actually does occasionally go to watch them, was we've done it without buying it. And for that's why I think we got an overwhelming well done pat on the back from the majority of other fans, whether that be West Ham fans, Leeds fans, Liverpool fans. They appreciate the ones who are real, for me, true football fans. They know that we've did it the right way. And Eddie Howe's had to galvanise and reorganise the squad and tactics, etc., to get the best at what is at his disposal. He hasn't been able to go and buy 2 £50 million players every window for the last 3 windows. So there's 6 players. If you put that into that squad now, then they would more than well challenge for the league title this year. But I haven't been able to do that, and we still won a trophy. And I think that's where we're getting the respect and what's the new phrase now, receiving our flowers or something like that. That's why we're getting what we're getting. And for us, it gives us, well, for me personally, it gives you a more sense of warmth where we've done it the right way. And we've broken the status quo with what we've had rather than having to buy ourselves into it. And for that, I'll forever be grateful that the financial fair play did restrict us to a point.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting, it's an interesting question from people out there. They do get frustrated. They see, that kind of phrase being bandied around, Mitch, that we're the richest club in the world. But, the Saudis have played it by the rule books, and it can be frustrating, I guess, by a lot of people. However, having said that, we've just qualified for the Champions League a couple of years ago. We've been to 2 cup finals. We've won one, lost one. Maybe we're an example of, actually you can do it without throwing money at it.
I think the success we've had tastes all the sweeter for doing it in spite of everything. I think I'd agree with that. I tell you, the only time I got frustrated properly was there was a 2-week window after the first APT ruling, where even someone like Kieran Maguire said,
Aston Villa have just scored. Sorry, Aston Villa have just scored.
Cheers, mate.
Even someone like Kieran Maguire said, if you wanted to put any deal you want through, this 2 weeks would be the time to do it, because you could turn around to the league and say, well, there wasn't any rules. And I am amazed, absolutely amazed, that no one did that. And part of me wishes we had just for the 2 fingers up to the world, but it would hand everything on a plate to everybody who wanted to say, oh, well, this is what they were going to do all along, and this is what we told you they would do, and probably would detract from what we've done. And nobody can take away what we've done. They can't even say we had an easy ride to the Carabao Cup final. Look at the teams we had to beat to get there to win it. And we did that in spite of everything. And so I think it tastes all the sweeter for that. But I also get everybody's frustration. There are times where I've been frustrated with it. Like I say, that particular 2-week window was probably my most frustrating time. Because when you've even got some of the experts almost saying, go on, just do it.
They wanted to told you so, didn't it? That's what they wanted.
Maybe that's what everybody wanted. You're absolutely right, mate. Maybe that's what everybody wanted. But, when you've got that going on in the background, it must have been difficult to resist. And not just for us, for every club.
Yeah, I mean, it's been interesting to hear one or two former players, interviewed over the last couple of hours, just talking about Nottingham Forest today, because obviously, they basically could secure a European place in the next couple of weeks. Obviously, still struggling at the moment, 0-0. They've won a lot of games by the odd goal, so it'll be interesting to see how that progresses today. But a lot of people talking about Nottingham Forest not being on a level playing ground, and also referring to Newcastle in the same breath. However, Notts Forest went out and breached the rules and were punished for it, Stu. I guess that's why people feel frustrated like that. It's Barry who put this forward. It's why people feel frustrated, isn't it? That Forest did it. That was their penalty. And look where they are now, from relegation contenders to European contenders.
Yeah, I touched that in my opening gambit, Steve. They needed to spend, otherwise they probably would have got about 3 points, because I think they had about 12 or 13 players that were under contract with them. So there's no way they couldn't have spent. And it's like your reward for gaining promotion, your reward for advancement is big fines and no opportunity to grow. And that's the unfairness of it. And yes, historically we go back, and if you work out, come by the end of the season, Liverpool and Man United have won 20 league titles each. The league's been going for, how many years? 140 years or something like that. So they've won by nigh on a third of the titles. If you look at the percentages, I haven't had time to work now, but not a third, can't be a third. They've won, 40 out of 140. So what's that, 20 plus percent? So that's just 2 teams out of, you can't say 92, because there's been about 120 teams in and out of the league, probably more in the earlier days. So they've dominated, but they've dominated because they had the most money, whether it be through the pools, whether it be through, and this might be controversial, but through sympathy for tragedies. Both clubs have been in touch with that and have managed to grow on that. But again, something that's we've covered. Both clubs had the foresight to visit the Middle East and the Far East in the late 70s and 80s and galvanise or create a fan base, which created extra money, which was never condoned, but now it's condoned because it's Man City or it's because it's Newcastle. And we've all seen the hypocrisy of it. over the last couple of years with the recent willingness of the Glazers to sell some shares or even the whole club to anyone with the most money, because that's what the Americans are in it for, quite clearly, for the most money. And shall we say, fake Sheikh Jassim was touted, and he was the saver of Man United. And the amount of backtracking, it was Michael Jackson would have been proud of it, with the moonwalks and things from Man United fans. No, oil money's bad, And then they bring up human rights, etc. They were clamouring for Sheikh Jassim to buy them. What they should have been doing is finding out if he was real or not and finding out if he had the funds or not. Well, that was their preference. We've had the Mackhams who were, well, it's not just them. There's many clubs that, let's not make it too local, who would have bent over backwards to be in our position. Thankfully, we know the reasons why. We know the part that people on this panel have played in it, and the role that Amanda Staveley played in as well. But we were the chosen ones. We were the best value because we were underrun. But I think there's an outcry now when for 2/3 of the price you could buy a Premier League team for 305 million, or you can get a women's team for 100 grand less. That's running at a loss. That's gets gates that are probably, and I'm being very, very generous here, 10 times less on average than what we were creating. This is why now people are starting saying what Chelsea are doing is wrong, but they're not within the rules that have been set by the Premier League. What they're doing is wrong between you and me and that fan, and whether it's a fan of Derby County, Chesterfield, Portsmouth, Queen of the South, it doesn't matter. We support the teams, but we support the sport more than anything. And when it's getting abused, it affects everyone. And this is going back to Barry's second question. I'm glad in a way, in fact, I'm more than glad that the PAF haven't abused the rules, haven't seen a loophole and went for it, because believe me, they could. And the bear will be poked enough times, and they will do it. But hopefully they won't need to. And that threat will linger over the Premier League. It'll linger over the clubs. And what scares them more than anything else, and why there's now seemed to be a more general acceptance amongst the national media, if you look at like Talk Sport and Sky Sports, that Newcastle are a growing force. They won't accept we're as big as what we are, but they are growing forces because we've done it the right way. And we haven't risen to any of the bait. And they still even now trot out the Isaacs for Arsenal, but now it's for Liverpool, and that player's for that player. But we can't really throw our toys out the pram over something like that when we've talked about Mbeumo and other players coming to Newcastle. You know, we can't have our cake and eat as fans as well. So sometimes take a step back and think, if you were a Brentford fan, or who's the latest one, the guy at Wolves, Cunha, if he's meant to be the next thing that's definitely coming to Newcastle, but we don't like it when people talk about our players. We shouldn't talk about others if we want a fair playing field. But the owners, for me, will carry on with integrity, which is what Barry asked. And I understand the frustration. But if it comes to the fact where their integrity is being abused, then the old adage is, don't take your kindness as a sign of weakness. Believe me, when they do roar, they will roar. And it'll shake the game to a point, pardon any pun with the word shake, misspelling and all that, but it'll shake the game to the point where the Premier League will collapse. But I see the Americans gathering their tanks on the loan. We used to use that phrase regarding the Premier League and the takeover, and going for numbers. And once they get the majority rule in the Premier League, and it is done on majority rule, 14 votes out over 6, all they need is 14. If they get to that stage, then it doesn't matter what we say or do unless it's done in the courts, and that's where Man City have went down that route. So that, if anything, what the people should be looking at is it not worrying for the game itself, especially the Premier League's brand, that it could become Americanized to the point where it's total domination, and UK owners, the British owners, Saudi owners, Far East owners, wherever you're from, they're in the very small minority, and it doesn't matter what happens. So then if you can't win because you're constantly getting voted out on a democratic vote, you'll just say, well, we've had enough now. And that's where my biggest fear long-term is. It comes to what Mitch pointed out before, is no relegation, franchises. The game gets taken where they'll be playing certain games stateside, they'll be playing certain states around the world. And I know I've previously mentioned where I know it was suggested that they have a game every 2 hours using 12 different time zones. And it's, round-the-clock football. And we have to be careful because it can happen. And it's something that if that brings in the viewers, they're not bothered about you, me, the 3,000, 4,000 fans that go to watch Newcastle every week away from home or every other week away from home. If it means they get a bigger viewing audience in the Far East or a bigger viewing audience in South America, and that brings the dollars over the counter, that's where it'll go. So who is the biggest worry? Saudi Arabia decide that they want to buy Newcastle and chance to look. They're not trying to buy 10 different teams. It's one team. It's one team. And as a Newcastle fan, we all know they've given us support us as much as they've been legally allowed to. And they will stay with us for long term. But the biggest fear for me of this game, Premier League football, is the Americanization of it.
Yep. No, George, integrity isn't an Italian centre forward. And Scott says we don't want total American ownership. No way.
It's happening. It's happening.
Yeah, it is, and it's been quite quiet, but now it's in plain sight. Brighton 2, Leicester 2, Aston Villa 2-0 up now. So it looks like Aston Villa will go above us in the Premier League tonight. Man City, of course, 5-2 winners. Notts Forest still 0-0 with Everton. So all to play for still with his race for the Champions League. As always, we will try and get to as many questions and answer these questions as we go through the show. We'll have a quick break. We will be back after this. Big thanks to all our sponsors. Skips and Bins. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. Their website, skipsandbins.com. Contact them, www.skipsandbins.com/contact. Big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. Their website, mrvickies.co.uk. Email info@mrvickies.co.uk. Telephone 01768 210 102. Thanks to our fanzine sponsor, United Group Travel, UK Coach Holidays. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. 2 crew, driver and courier, local family company, 3-star plus quality hotels, no interchanges. Hot and cold snacks and drinks available on the coach, all excursions included. Their website, www.unitedgrouptravel.com. Email beverly.ugtl@gmail.com. Telephone 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. A big thanks to Media Arts for all the technical side of things. And if you want to listen to us as a podcast, you can find us on Sport Social Podcast Network. We're also available on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. If you want to support the channel, then hit the subscribe button. We still do 7 shows a week. Hit the like button, which is the thumb underneath this video, and click share to your social media. You could also take out a monthly membership or an annual membership at nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk. For the lifetime membership, you can pay £25 and get a pen, a beer mat, a fridge magnet, a badge and a keyring and your membership card and entry into the monthly draw. Some events coming up, 27th of June, 2025, the end of season party. Beresford, Howe and Watson will be at the Tyneside Irish Centre with Joe Allen in aid of North Tyneside Age UK. You can get your tickets for that one from nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk or from Woucher. No Covers takes place at the Clooney. That's on the 29th of June, midday till 3:45, and tickets are £10 from theclooney.com or newcastlelegends.com. Northern Horizon, a Blake 7 convention, takes place on the 9th of August, 10 till 4 at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Come and meet some of the cast and crew in aid of Age UK North Tyneside Dementia. Tickets from nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk. An evening with Peter Beardsley and Chris Waddle takes place on Friday the 23rd of January 2026 at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House. You can get tickets from the box office 0844 249 1000 or from tynetheatreandoperahouse.uk. And Bad Manners are back in the Northeast at the O2 City Hall, Friday the 30th of January 2026. Tickets from ticketmaster.co.uk. And we have copies of The Entertainer's book, signed by Les Ferdinand, available from nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk. Only got 7 of those books left, signed by Les. So if you want one, do not miss out. Get yourself onto the website, nufcmatters.co.uk or newcastlelegends.com, and you can get your copy today. I'll post it out on Monday. Lee Jones asked a question earlier. He says, with Eddie winning our first trophy and when we finish top 5, is he manager of the year, manager of the season, or would it be Nuno for the Forest turnaround, or Slot for winning the league in his first season? Yeah, it's a couple of other contenders there, but do you think Eddie might just pip it because it's our first trophy in 70 years, Mitch? Mitch's internet slightly behind.
Oh, there you go. Hello.
Oh, you're back.
Sorry, I'm just distracted by VAR on the Forest Everton game.
Okay, did you get the question, Mitch?
About manager of the year. It's going to be Slot at the end of the day. It's going to be Slot. We can't look at it any other way. I can't see any vote going any other way. Because let's be honest, they've been the consistently good team in the Premier League this season. He's done it in his first season at Liverpool. I can't see anybody voting any other way than Slot.
All right, what's your view on that, Stu? Do you agree Slot as the manager of the year, or do you think Eddie's...
Total agreement, Steve. Total agreement. If we looked at everyone at the start of the season, or even after the transfer window closed at the end of August, and the fact that Liverpool only brought in Chiesa and had a new manager, I don't think many people would have had them as runaway leaders. Some people, myself included, didn't have them in the top 3. And have they overachieved? Have others underachieved? It doesn't matter. Invariably, it goes to the team that win the league. And rather than just give it a pep again year on year and year, I think Slot deserves it. Even if we finish, Eddie Howe would have to get Newcastle to finish 3rd rather than and win the cup, but to even be in the conversation. And for me, it's Slot's a clear winner of it.
Okay, breaking news. Steve had just put something in the chat there, but Keith Downey has put it out on Twitter 2 minutes ago. Eddie Howe will miss tomorrow's match against Manchester United after being admitted to hospital. The Newcastle United manager remains in hospital in Newcastle under observation. He is conscious and talking with his family. Howe missed his press conference yesterday and has been unable to take training all week. Jason Tindall and Graham Jones will take charge of the game. And of course, it goes without saying, best wishes to Eddie from all at NUFC Matters. That's breaking news, Mitch. That sounds slightly more serious than we expected. Bedridden for the week is what we'd been told by Jason Tindall yesterday, but doesn't sound as if the problem's got away. It sounds as if it's got worse.
Yeah, it doesn't sound good at all. But I tell you what, there's a rallying cry for the entire team. There's a rallying cry for everybody. Do this for Eddie. And, I just can only wish him well. I mean, to be hospitalised and to have a statement like that suggests he's been very poorly indeed. And so we can only wish him well in a speedy recovery. And as I said, the best fillip we could give him is to turn those buggers over tomorrow.
Yes, breaking news that Eddie Howe's going to miss the game, Stu. It's Mitch is right. It will be a rallying cry. Graham Jones and Tindall, of course, in charge. Tindall did mention yesterday as well that training, although he has been a miss, it hasn't been massive changes, and Eddie had been in touch day by day on the phone.
He's not going to say any different. I was thinking that in the press conference yesterday, and they're never going to tell us how serious the illness is. But sometimes football has to take a back seat, and I hope it's just a precautionary measure why he's been taken into hospital. And I think we've seen how Eddie Howe manages, how he's committed himself to football. For me, he's the type that'll play it down and say, look, I'm all right, I'll be all right. Give us till tomorrow, I'll be fine. I'm okay. And it's obviously got to the stage where he needs more serious attention. And if he's in hospital, he's in the right place. And I don't think there's a Newcastle fan or even a football fan in the country that wouldn't wish him a swift recovery. And Everton have just scored against Forest, by the way.
Oh, one result's gone our way.
Yeah, so I'm in agreement with Mitch. It'll be a rallying cry, but I don't think we'd need that to beat Man United tomorrow.
Media must be behind you.
Well, obviously, I've just said the score and you haven't got it. So there's your answer. So regarding Eddie Howe, I really hope he recovers quickly and he gets the best medical attention. And you can imagine whether it be in the RVI, the Freeman, or whichever hospital he's in, Tyne based, the doctors will know the importance of he is to the people, and he'll get the best medical care available. So wishing him a speedy recovery, and I'm sure the team will respond in kind. And we've got 3 games in the next 6 days, and what a fillip it would be for him if we won all 3. But I think mostly, although, when we say that's the team talk sorted, that could actually distract the players as well, because he does have a deep relationship with a lot of them, and the respect is there. So the first game tomorrow will be emotion. If and when the news comes out of how serious the illness is, then that could have an effect for Wednesday and the following Saturday. But stuff like this puts football into perspective. And for me, I'd rather Eddie Howe make a swift and healthy recovery than get 9 points in 3 games. But it'd be nice to do both, and I'm sure that's what he would want. He's very selfless in that way. So whether now the suggestions start, is it an infection, is it this, is it that? If you're talking about tooth extraction, then I'm an expert on having them extracted. The man on the other side of the screen is an expert on extracting them. So he'll be able to tell you if that has a knock-on effect like a week later. I'm not so sure. But hopefully Eddie's stay in hospital isn't too long, and he gets out of hospital fit and well, and he's back to lead the charge for us into the Champions League.
It segues nicely into the next into the next segment, actually. But I will ask you that question, Martin. Of course, it's speculation. He's just suggesting that could be something. I mean, is that something that could happen, Mitch?
In the modern age, antibiotics, that would be something that I would say would be unlikely, but not impossible. I think, sadly, because of the state of the NHS and lack of access, the number one reason for admissions of under 6s to A&E with infection are now dental infections, unfortunately, for example. But I wouldn't expect that to hit a fit and healthy man like Eddie Howe. That would be very unlikely.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll wait and see what happens. Full times in the Championship: Millwall 1, Middlesbrough 0, Sunderland 0, Swansea 1. So defeat for our Teesside and Wearside rivals. We'll be talking about that tomorrow, of course, on Three's a Crowd. I'll have a beam and smile. The other two will look as if look very unhappy. Looking forward to that. So, the other question I was going to ask you is Joey Barton this week on a podcast came out and said that the reason that some players lose their weight in football is because they get the teeth done. He was referring to Kevin De Bruyne, who seems to have used that to motivate himself a little bit today with his performance. But yeah, I mean, Is the truth in that? You get your teeth done, it changes the alignment of your spine, and it does affect the way that you play.
Allow
We've
me
got some
to,
interesting.
Mitch, allow me to build you up to this. Mitch did UEFA convention on this just a couple of years ago. The impact dentistry has on top level athletes. So, hold on. Yeah, that way. No, that way. Over to you, Dr. Neil.
Yeah, I mean, if you want an actual metric, something that's recognised and substantiated with peer-reviewed studies, if you make an elite group athlete dentally fit, their performance improves, and that's a statistical fact now. Now, with regards to what Joey Barton's alluding to, there are links between a misalignment in your jaw, what we call a malocclusion, and how that can affect and produce problems further down your core. And I'm talking all the way from the top of your head down to your ankles. And there are some, suggestions now that your core doesn't start at the top of your chest; it starts at the top of your head, and you can be misaligned all the way down. We've got some data. I'm working with a good colleague of mine called Dr. Tanos, a Greek dentist, who's the chair of the European Academy of Sports Dentistry. He's doing some work with Greek Super League teams, Olympiakos, Atromitos, and Panathinaikos, I think, is the three teams he's working with. And he sent me some data. He got me to work the numbers without actually telling me what the numbers were. If you get two groups of data and you run them through a statistical analysis to come up with something called a P number, which says how do these two numbers relate to each other? Is there a correlation? And he asked me to do the P number, and you want your P number to be less than 1. So the P number I got was something like 0.07. It was pretty damn low. When he told me what the two data sets were, I was quite surprised. The two data sets were players with impacted wisdom teeth and the amount of hamstring injuries they suffer. And it would seem that if you've got an elite footballer with impacted wisdom teeth, he's 20% more likely to suffer a hamstring injury. Now, what the mechanism for that is, fuck knows, I think is the clinical term at the moment. But the data adds up. The data makes sense. And I'm working with Tanos on a sports dentistry project over here. Soon we've got a Zoom meeting with a couple of the football teams here next week, and that could be quite exciting because we want to get more data. We've got data linking footballers with gum disease to things like tendonitis, which that makes sense to me. It's all inflammatory related. And what we're starting to recognise, it's the old song, the head bone's connected to the neck bone and so on. We're talking about an integrated system. Western medicine's long broken everything down into compartments, really, because that's the easiest way to teach it. But the problem is that's not how it works. Everything interacts with everything else. And certainly what Joey's getting at is something, there's certainly a suggestion that if you change the way someone bites, you can change the way their body performs. One thing Tanos is looking at is balance. And so again, if you stand somebody on 2 pressure pads, they will have a bias, like one side that will carry so much more percentage of their weight than the other side. What you find is your elite footballers, your Lionel Messi's and your Ronaldo's, are almost perfectly balanced. They're almost 50-50 in a way that not many other people are. If you introduce an appliance called a MORA, a mandibular orthopedic repositioning appliance, basically it repositions your bite, you can change that balance and get it more perfect. Where's that being used at the moment? Tennis and golf. Because the data from Japan says if you put one of these appliances in, you can increase your grip strength by as much as 5%. Now, that might not sound much, but when you're talking elite group athletes, you're usually talking about 0.1% and less between somebody who's very, 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 very good and somebody who's elite. If you can give somebody a 5% improvement, that's ridiculous. That's a game changer, quite literally. And the PGA apparently in the States have actually banned players from playing with these MORA appliances in already because they are wanting to know more about it. You'll see tennis players, there's some tennis players playing with what look like gum shields in. No, they're Mores, they're mandibular orthopedic repositioning appliances, and that's all about grip strength. It's all about making them grip the tennis racket harder, therefore more power in their shots, their endurance increases. But there's also some suggestion that if you put the jaw into perfect alignment, it improves your air intake, it improves your airway. So that's going to improve your endurance. It's going to improve your stamina because you get more oxygen in. There's also some suggestion it reduces your cortisol production, which means as a golfer, you're less likely to get the yips, you're less likely to get jittery. You're also going to be clearer of mind. You're going to make cleverer and better decisions. No more Jean-Paul van der Velde rolling his trousers up and wading into the water and throwing the open away, for example. So there's loads of different ways that this can impact. Could it be impacting Premier League footballers going off to have their teeth done? Yes, I believe so. Totally believe so. Do we need a lot more evidence and a lot more proper empirical data and proper studies? Loads. We need loads of that. The biggest challenge you have when you go to the cutting edge on these things is you're probably about 2 steps away from the lunatic fringe. And that's when sort of silly things start to get chucked around as well. And you start to get chucked in with the nutters. And it's a really difficult place to go and play. But I think it's really important because if you're talking about elite group athletes, if you can give somebody a less than 0.1% improvement in their performance, that genuinely is the difference between gold and silver. It's the difference between scoring that extra time winner in the World Cup final and not being able to reach the header. It's the difference between being able to play at your best for a full Premier League season and being off for 1 or 2 games, and that might cost your team the championship. These are the margins on which you stand and fail in elite sport, and some of them are tiny. It might sound mad to say, but the difference between Lionel Messi and John Joe Shelby, for example, is probably less than 0.1%. That's how fine these margins are. So any advantage that you can give an elite group athlete, be that by making them fitter, more well-being, is going to be important. And I think it's significant now that a lot of bodies are taking on board these in medicals. This transfer has been cancelled in Italy in the last few years because they failed the dental examination. The clubs have gone, your mouth is an absolute sewer. I am not spending 50 million euros on you. I'm going to look at another player. Thank you very much.
Okay, we do have a guest today, lads, because as we know, tomorrow we take on Manchester United, and he hasn't been on the show for a while, lads. It's Melly. Hello, Melly.
Hello, Melly.
Hey, all right, boys.
Funny enough, we've just been talking about
Better than you are at the moment.
We've just been talking about turkey teeth.
These are from Shire Moor, these are
They're
turkey.
from the glass at the side of your bed, tell the truth.
Melly, you'll have heard the news. Maybe you haven't. Anyhow, won't make the game tomorrow. He's been taken into hospital last night. Now his illness is obviously not not getting any better, and he's conscious, and that we've just been talking about whether that could affect Newcastle's players. It could give them a bit of a that there could be, let's win it for the gaffer kind of mentality, but it could also have a negative effect, in the sense that, he's got such a connection with the team, that it may affect them. How do you feel as a Manchester United fan about that?
Well, to be honest with you, I'm not very hopeful anyway, Steve. But first and foremost, mate, I just want to say I wish Eddie well, and I hope he gets better soon. It's never good when they say that he's up and he's talking, and because that means that illness is quite severe, So rivalries aside, I hope he's fitting well because he's a really nice guy. As far as the game goes, you're right what you say. It could go either way, couldn't it? It's either like, oh, Eddie's not here, what do we do? Or let's win it for the gaffer. I didn't think, personally, it'll affect you that much. I think that Man United's focus will be on Thursday night. The game always meant more to you than what it did us. You're chasing Champions League, and what will we get out of winning 12th place? Do you know what I mean? So even though we're going to rest players, I still think you had to be favourites because you've got a better team than one this year. And you would have been confident going into the game. But now I think, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the young'uns will come in and they'll want to show the gaffer that they're ready, you know, and we could sneak a win, you know. You never know.
You can live in hope. What was your feelings about Newcastle winning a trophy, Melly?
Look, you know, like it's been a long time coming. I was in a Leicester pool bar with my mate Gary, watching it, and I was a Toon fan for that couple of hours, because there was a lot of scouts as in. Obviously, we didn't want them to win it, and then, you know, like, I support Man United, but I'm still from the Northeast, so, you know, the Northeast has been buzzing since. But as far as the parade goes, though, I thought that it would have made more of a statement had you went, look, won the Carabao Cup, it's on display, you can all come and visit, you know, the trophy room. There's plenty of room there for everybody. But we're not having a parade. We'll have a parade when we win the Premier League. I think that would have sent out a bigger statement of your intent.
All right, okay. Well, that's an interesting idea. But when you haven't won anything for 70 years, I think that's probably the reason we did it. But we'll agree to disagree on that. I want to get you on the fans forum on Monday after the game, so I'm not going to keep you too long. You
Depends.
say that you're not. You say you're not confident. So where do you see this game going? You say you're going to rest players. Obviously, you're saying the Lyon game's more important. So you're getting your excuses in early, Melly.
No, that's not excuses, Steve. It's the truth, mate. It's I'm just being transparent with you. Do you know what I mean? It's the game. You know, although we want to win it, you know, like Manchester United never gone anywhere to lose. But I just I cannot see we're getting a result. I think it was a tough ask anyway. But now, you know, like, we've got Thursday night, we've got a couple of players who picked up a couple of knocks there. Harry obviously picked up a knock. And will he rest? Will he rest a few of them? Yes, I think he will. I think he'll rest some. St James's Park is never the easiest ground to go to, as everybody knows. You know, like, this is your second cup final in 2 months. You know what I mean? So you'll be up for it.
Are you still confident in Amarim? Because I saw your post the other day on X, and I know sometimes you go fishing, but you genuinely, seriously think Amarim's going to turn it around at Manchester United? You were wrong about Sir Jim Ratcliffe, mind. We told you on this show that he was going to end up being the patsy for the Glazers, and it's definitely not. There's definitely nothing changed. Has he set up a GoFundMe for the stadium yet?
Steve, right, I know you've only got us on for a couple of minutes here, so I'm going to talk as quick as I can, right? Yeah. And I'm trying to squeeze in as much as I can here, right? But you're saying that Jim Ratcliffe is not the man for the job. But he's come into that job. He knew exactly what he was getting into, right? He knew exactly what he was getting into. He still bought players. He still bought a lot of players. He spent a lot of money. But he's having to make decisions that other people didn't want to make. Yes, it looks like it's shocking, but you've got to start somewhere, right? And I think he genuinely loves Manchester United, right? We're going to get this new stadium, and getting back to Ruben Amorim as well. He's backing Ruben, and so am I, and so is 99% of Manchester United fan base. And I don't know why you wouldn't. This has been classed. He's been told when Ten Hag got sacked, right, look, use this season as a massive pre-season. See who you want to keep, see who you want to get rid of. And that's exactly what he's done. He's put the players out there, and he's went, look, perform and we'll keep you. If you don't perform, then we'll not. And they've proved their worth. A lot of the players, a lot of them went in January. He got a lot of grief for that, and a lot of them will go in the summer as well. And the one signing that he has made, Patrick Dorgu, although he had a couple of bad games previously, but let's remember he's only a 19-year-old kid, is a very good player. He leaves everything out there, and you can see that he will become good. So if that one signing is anything to go off, he wants players that are going to run all game. Gone are the days where you buy these players for 100 million, mate, right? And you're attracting the best of the best, and you give them 300 grand a week. What's the point? They're not performing. It's too much. You're putting too much on the heads of young men. So buy cheap, give decent wages, and you'll see a totally different Manchester United next. But right, agree or disagree with me here, right? Did you watch the game against Lyon on Thursday night?
I watched it. Did anybody else?
Yeah.
I was cut me 2-0, sorry.
We are that game alone, right? We're one competent goalkeeper and a prolific goal scorer away from winning that game 4-1. Then the game's finished. It's over with. The second leg's done. we've won 4-1 away from home. You know, like that's it. But that's how close we are. That's how close we are. Players are trying to buy into his system, but they're just not good enough, and they cannot do the running that he's requiring. So yes, I back Ruben Amorim 100 million%. I'm not a believer in sacking managers anyway. But I think Eric Ten Hag's time it came. I think him and the owners had he not won the FA Cup, I think he would have gotten sacked. He won the FA Cup. They backed him in the transfer window. He made some signings. They're taking quite a while to come to, to show their true colours. But I think they've done all right. Xerxes actually did. You know who Xerxes reminds us of? Joe Linton.
Really?
Aye, because you played Joe up front, right? And he was doing nothing for you. You dropped him back in midfield, and honestly, he starts in front of everybody now.
Okay, give us your prediction, Melly, for the game.
Well, I'm not confident, but I'm never ever going to back against my team, so I'm going to go for 1-1. I'll settle with a 1-1 draw.
Great stuff. I hope you can get on Monday night. We'll see how it goes, mate.
I'll come on regardless, Steve. You know what I mean?
You're a top man.
Can we keep him on? Melly, can he stay on? Can he stay on for a bit?
Go on. Have we got 2 minutes?
No, because I genuinely I agree with a couple of points you said there. That on 2 counts anyway, I do believe from the outside looking in that you've got the right manager, and I genuinely do believe that. He's a good manager, and I admire the way he's sticking to what he believes in. This is my system, like it a little bit. So that's where you talk about the pre-season. I also agree with you that this Sunday, tomorrow's game is not a priority for you because you've got the game on Thursday. And I don't know if you watched the start of the show. I had a Saudi supporting Man United fan today. A Man United supporting Saudi today. And what he was talking about it, but then I said, look, a 2-2 draw away in a European quarter-final is a good result. You know, I know the keeper, you can blame it and point fingers, this, that, and the other. And he's like, yeah, but we're no good at Old Trafford. Now, for me, if he's a proper fan, he would have called it home, but he called it Old Trafford. Mm-hmm. And that's the expectation on the fans, where they're expecting to win. But I do like the way you've got your excuses in early and say it's not your priority, etc. And that's the Newcastle side was coming out. But I disagree with you. You said I don't think they'll get a result tomorrow. I think they will get a result, but it'll be heavily in Newcastle's favour. But Man United aren't as far as away from competing at the top end of the table as people think. And I say that, and I think there'll be Newcastle fans disagreeing with this, probably en masse just because of the history. But first of all, you need the right manager, and they have got the right manager. And it's something you said there, where that what he's had this season has been a big pre-season. Eddie Howe had something similar, but he also had the remit of keep them in the league. So he'll know who he wants in his starting team going into next season. The downside is, have you got the money to spend? Will the owners give you the money to spend? And are you allowed, with the financial fair play restrictions you and others trying to impose on Newcastle, give you the funds to do so? That's the conundrum of it all. But at the moment, Melly, I know you live up in the Thumberland, up in Ashington way. You've laughed for probably 3 decades at Newcastle's demise. So give us this season or 2 seasons, hopefully a lot longer, of us lording it over you. But the fact that we've won a trophy, and what's wrong? The only thing I think you said wrong was knocking the parade. Because if you looked at when Man United first won a trophy under Ferguson, it was the first proper trophy in a while. There was a huge parade when it was the FA Cup, wasn't it, against Crystal Palace? There was a huge parade then. You didn't think I knew the answer, did you? And then when Liverpool won the league, even through COVID, they were out with the fireworks and outside the stadium. It means something. It's the passion. That's what makes football. It's a passion of the fans. And if we can't salute teams winning something, then we're watching the wrong sport. So that's the bit I disagree with. But I still think you'll get a good talent tomorrow. Like,
no, you know what? Look, different, because if you watch my the podcast that I do, the Talking Turf podcast, I actually said I can see why you did it. It's been 70 years since you did it, and one good thing. Well, for you, everything was good about it, but one good thing that'll come out of that is that they were on about building a 65,000 seater stadium, I think that he's got to look at that and think we need to get 90,000 at least, because you'll fill
can't do
it.
90. 70, yes, 90, no.
But I don't know. You see,
is,
if he gets 70, 75,000 regulars, you will. The season ticket holders would take up 50,000 straight away, and then you could have a section that would allow, which I firmly believe in, and I think there should be some kind of petition put up for to do this in all clubs. By the way, is for people who cannot afford to go to football. You know, like make it accessible to them. As kids play in parks who've never been to a game because literally they cannot afford to do it. So have 5,000-10,000 seats in every stadium where they can go into a game. Everybody should be able to go into a game. You can in Germany, you know, and so I cannot see why they can't do it over here, you know. And I think if they built a 90,000 seat stadium for Newcastle, I don't think you'd have any trouble whatsoever filling it. Because one thing I cannot go at you for is your support. You know, like you've got good support, although it's not better than ours.
You know, the answer to your question, Melly, is why they won't give it, and you're right, underprivileged people, and allow people in, even if it's in the gods, you know, right at the top. And obviously, I want to start the show. There's 2-word answer: American ownership, because every seat is $1, and that's why they won't have bigger stadiums. Newcastle won't get 80, 90,000. They could fill it on that remit, but they won't. For me, it won't get more than 70,000 because you've got to have a supply and demand shortage where there's not enough supply for the demand, and that keeps the prices high. But I think our owners are savvy enough. It is. But our owners are savvy enough to I think they'll put tickets aside for international fans, new fans, as people are calling them, and for underprivileged, because if we're being serious about it, the North East is in the UK a massively underprivileged area in comparison to others. But these kids can take inspiration. I think that's what you're talking about, by going to these games and becoming footballers and getting on. And we've talked about on this show many times where if everyone keeps their season ticket, the youth can't get in and they'll start doing other things. So you need to bring the new generation on. So all that I'm sure will be taken into account. But for us, we'll be 70,000, which will make us the second biggest stadium league-wise after Hughes. And that's a huge step for us. And we're going the right way.
What are you now,
that's
52?
That's me being as nice as I can to you, Melly, as a Man United fan.
You know, like I will, you know, it's what are you at now, 52?
Yeah.
350.
So are you all for leaving St James's and moving into the new ground?
You have to, because you can't build the stadium bigger because of the Leazes Terrace behind the East Stand. And I think everyone... I don't think brainwashed. I think everyone's accustomed to understand off the idea that as Roy Keane mentioned it 20 years ago, the prawn sandwich brigade is unfortunately has a huge or integral part of football clubs now. And when I wouldn't even say if, when we move to the new stadium, which I think the announcement can't be too far away now, there'll be rings, at least 1 or 2 rings, not prawn rings, but rings off executive boxes, and that'll bring in its own money. I think we talked about it last week or the week before, but if you're charging even 50 grand a season for a box and you've got 100 boxes, there's 5 million straight in. You know, so I reckon we'll have 200 boxes, which will it allows us to compete. And that's, for me as a Newcastle fan, all I've ever wanted is to be able to compete at the top end. And if it was done on passion, we'd win the league every year, but it's not. But the way things have been heavily in favour of the established, we'll call it the establishment, we've now got a realistic chance of challenging, and that's all we've ever wanted, a fighting chance, and we've got that now.
Mitch, anything?
A good friend of mine, a good friend of mine's got a box there, and he's being told if he gives it up, there's a waiting list of 150 at least.
Yeah. They don't care.
So it's there. They know that it's there.
Yeah. Mitch, anything for Melly?
Just as ever, it's always good to have somebody from the other camp on and may the best team win.
Aye, good on you, Mitch. It is. It's
What's your prediction then, Melly? What's your prediction for tomorrow? You said 1-1.
I'm going 1-1, mate. I kind of got,
That's
you know,
your
like, I'm
hope.
not
That's your
confident,
hope.
but I'm going 1-1.
That's your hope. What do you really think it'll be?
I think, no, I'm not saying it.
3-1.
I kind of, honestly, it would tear me
You've
apart if
said
I
it.
said it.
You've said enough now. You know you're going to get tan tomorrow. That's
All right, Melly, thanks for jumping on at short notice. I will endeavour to get in touch with you on Monday, and may the best team win. Take care, mate. Speak to you soon, pal.
Yes, good crack, lads. Take care. Thank you.
Don't
Cheers,
forget,
Melly.
Cheers, mate.
Talking Turf is Melly's podcast. Get across on YouTube and give him a follow. Take care, mate.
Thanks. Cheers. See you, boys.
Ta-ra, mate.
Great to have him on, and as always, an honest opinion from Melly. Great to have him on the show. Let's look ahead with Stu to the Manchester United game. Mitch and me have already given our opinions on the Amigos. Stu, what's your feelings on the Manchester United game? I mean, you always go 3-1, of course, but I went 3-0. Mitch went 2-0. I think the dice went 3-0. So yeah, that's right, 3-0. So what's your feelings apart from your usual 3-1?
Well, my usual 3-1's there, but last week for Leicester, I predicted 3-1 or 4-0, and it was 3. I'm always a goal off. So if anyone fancies a flutter, I'll take the pick. So yes, I've got 3-1 on this game. I've got 3-1 against Crystal Palace, and I've got 3-1 against Aston Villa already, because we've got 3 games before the professionals back on next Sunday. But I say this with genuine belief rather than hope. It's with serious conviction. We will win comfortably tomorrow. And this is why I gave Melly his head and allowed him to explain, they've got bigger fish to fry. Of course they have. They cannot physically qualify for Europe through the league position. So quite rightly, all their eggs are in this basket. And I still get back to something I say nearly every week. You ask this question, how many of their players would get in our team? And people talk about the rat. I don't even think he would get in our team, because he's not a team player, and that's what our ethos is built on. So although he has talent, I don't think he would get in our team. So if we play to the best of our ability, then for me it's 3 points. Now I've got 3-1 as a bet. Tomorrow I'll be betting 4-0 and 5-0 as well. So if anyone expects to win money, put it on. What's the ones that in between 4-1, 5-1, whatever. I know the Heat's got 5-1, but I honestly think we'll win by as much as we want, as we could off on Monday. It was 3-0 after, I think, 34 minutes. If we really applied ourselves, and that was our cup final on Monday, we would have got close to double figures if we really wanted to, because Leicester are the worst team that team was the worst team we've played this season, and in that particular game. And I mean, that includes the MK Dons or Wimbledon, whoever it was. It includes Birmingham. They showed a bit fight. They showed a bit desire. They showed that they wanted to compete. That team was so passive, we could have got anything that we wanted to on Monday. And rightly so, we get the results to the point where there's no comeback and we can start resting. Imagine you're taking off Isaac, Bruno, Trippier, Joe Linton, and I think Barnes was the first substitute. That's who you get taken off with half an hour to go for the majority of them. It was the most comfortable win that we'll have all season. Tomorrow, if we apply ourselves in the same manner, we'll be, I think by an hour mark, we'll be 3-0 up. And then it's up to how we manage it. Do we push for the jugular, or do we be conscious that we've got a game, 2 more games in the 5 following days? So any win for me. If you look at the results today, we talked before the show, Steve, the top 5 starting last week, which was Liverpool, Arsenal, Forest, Man City, Chelsea, none of them won. And only us and Villa did. And I said this time last week that Villa would be the ones that would challenge us for the 5th, 4th place in the Champions League. Villa have won again today. Forest are hitting the jitters at just the wrong time. There was something mentioned there. If we win today and win Wednesday, we're in 3rd place. The destiny's in our own hands. So as much as I'd love a 5-0, a 6-0, a 7-0, I think they'll get the job done and Man United's focus will be on Thursday. That's their cup final on Thursday. And for me, it's a formality. The only time I felt this confident, and this is what really, really scares us, was when we played West Ham at home. And we ended up getting sucker punched there. But I think Newcastle now to the Newcastle then, it's a different animal. They've had a taste of success. They've now got a common goal. It's not like, we can pick points up for the rest of the season. They know they're on the final running, and mistakes cannot really be made. Tomorrow, for me, is a foregone conclusion hoping. So I'll stick with 3-1 just on the off chance that they get a breakaway. And we'll win again on Wednesday, and I'll take a point at Villa. And if we get anywhere between 5 to 7 points in the next 3 games, we'll get Champions League.
Okay, Mitch, we'll come to you. You're on mute, mate. But you're obviously off now. But yeah, Crystal Palace, we know your prediction for the Man United game. Crystal Palace, of course, we take them on Wednesday night. We won't be doing a show on Wednesday. It's a 7:30 kickoff. It's live on Sky Sports. How are you feeling about that one, Mitch?
They showed today against Man City they can be dangerous still, so we can't take it for granted. Can't take it for granted.
It's a tough game. Palace is more of a tough game than...
Probably, yes. I'd agree with you, mate. I'd agree with you. But again, if we apply ourselves, put the effort in that we know we can, deliver the performances that we know we can, we shouldn't fear anybody at home. And they should be fearing coming to St James's Park. And I tell you what, when they were caught on the break, they were opened up, and we seem to love to play on the break like that. So we just have to apply ourselves, and the result should look after itself.
Prediction from you on that one, Mitch?
2-1 us. Might be a little bit of a twitchy-nipsy game, but 3 points is all that matters.
Okay, great stuff. Thank you very much to everybody in the chat. If you are watching on Twitter, there's 700 watching tonight. Please jump over from Twitter onto YouTube, search NUFC Matters, hit the subscribe button. We do 7 shows a week. Thank you to everybody in the chat. Thanks to Mitch, to Stu, and thanks to Melly. I'm back 10:30 in the morning with Three's a Crowd, with the Smoggy and the Mackham, to look back at their wonderful weekend and hopefully look ahead to a wonderful weekend for Newcastle United. Take care, Stu. Take care, Mitch. Take care, everybody.
Yes, Steve. Thanks, everyone.